Welcome back, my friends. Today on the channel, we're going to do a special Q&A video about the upcoming US election. It's happening in 3 days. And I asked you guys, what do you want to know? What do you want to know about US politics, and specifically the election? I'm an American citizen, but only 32% of my audience is American. The other 60-some% are people across the world, and people across the world are concerned by statements made specifically by Donald Trump. Given the size of America's economy and our position in the G7, our position in NATO, yes, it's very important to people across the world who wins this election. So here are your top-ranked questions. The most thumbs-up question was from DonutMaster2446. 300 thumbs up. Here's the question. If Harris wins but the House stays red, so the House stays Republican, will we see a shortage of aid to Ukraine similar to what happened in October of last year? And this really depends. So in this hypothetical, Harris is elected president, but maybe the Republicans control the House and the Senate. It really depends on which Republicans control the House and the Senate. For example, Senator Mitch McConnell supports Ukraine. This wasn't controversial for him to do. But he's stepping down. He won't be the Republican leader in the Senate anymore after November. And we don't know who's going to be in charge of the Senate on the Republican side. Will it be someone who's not insane, like Mitch McConnell? Or will it be one of these MAGA senators like Lee from Utah or Josh Hawley from Missouri? It really depends. And as far as the House of Representatives, this is the breakdown. This is Speaker Mike Johnson. He's in charge of the House. And at the moment, I don't think the Republicans are going to control the House. But if they do, it's up to Speaker Johnson what he wants to do. If Donald Trump is defeated, he's done. He's not coming back in 4 years, running again at age 82. So does Mike Johnson want to be his own person? Or does he want to keep listening to Donald Trump even after Donald Trump lost the election? I secretly think Mike Johnson agrees with the national security experts that America should continue supporting Ukraine. But I don't think he cares that strongly about it. This is not one of his top 5 issues. So it's going to be a persuasion game. If Mike Johnson stays in charge of the Republicans in the House, then people are going to have to talk to him, going to have to meet with him, going to have to convince him. He's probably going to want something politically in return just for allowing a vote. But I do think it would happen. So I am optimistic if Harris wins, even if the Republicans control Congress, military aid for Ukraine will continue. Next question. If Harris is elected, who would you like to see appointed Secretary of Defense and National Security Advisor? To me, it doesn't really matter as long as they support NATO and they support Ukraine. Everyone likes to talk about the names, for example, General Ben Hodges. He's been on my channel. There's also retired General Mark Hertling. And I don't think you know this, but Kamala Harris currently has a National Security Advisor. His name is Philip H. Gordon. Now with Jake Sullivan has real power. He makes decisions and Joe Biden more or less will just accept them. But the National Security Advisor to the Vice President has no say in anything. He's an advisor. It's his job to sit in meetings and collect information and then brief the current Vice President, Kamala Harris. Now, if Kamala Harris wins, does this guy become the new National Security Advisor? And I don't think so. I think Kamala Harris will pick somebody different. But it's interesting because how many of you knew who Phil Gordon was until I just told you he's the National Security Advisor for the Vice President? He's in the meeting. So here's Harris meeting with Zelensky, and that's Philip Gordon right there. What are his thoughts and opinions on Ukraine? I'm sure he supports Ukraine. Would he want to lift restrictions on the use of long-range weapons? Ultimately, that's the decision for Biden after the election. or Harris after January 20th if she wins. What powers does a US president actually have when it comes to overriding Congress? And how often have those powers been used? So officially, with checks and balances, the president has the power to veto whatever Congress passes. So if Congress passes something with a simple majority or 60 votes in the Senate to get over the filibuster, the president can veto it, and then Congress can override the veto with 2/3 majority. But your question, I think, is actually framed a little strange. What powers does the president have to override Congress? And the president doesn't have the power to override Congress and just do whatever the president wants. That's a dictatorship. That's an authoritarian government. Article 1 of our Constitution is Congress, because Congress is supposed to be supreme. It's supposed to be the governing body of the United States. The president is just the executive. It's the president's job to execute the orders from Congress. The president isn't supposed to be making law. The president isn't supposed to be dictating to the people. That's a dictatorship. And unfortunately, in the last century, Congress just won't make decisions. There's gridlock and there's just too many special interest groups and factions. So in order for the United States to govern and function, the president the last 100 years has been doing more executive actions. Executive signings, executive memorandums, and the Supreme Court has more or less been okay with it. These are not powers granted to the president in the Constitution, but this is a new power that the president has made, and the Supreme Court has just been allowing. So more and more presidents are signing executive orders and executive actions because Congress won't do their job. Case in point, here's the website showing recent executive signings from President Biden. These are not laws. So, for example, if Biden signs an executive order, Trump then comes into office, Trump can then just undo them and change them, which is what Joe Biden did when he took office 4 years ago. So executive orders are not law. They're not permanent. If the president changes, the president can just change these orders. The example I want to give is immigration reform and border security. Congress created a bipartisan border bill earlier this year. This was a compromise to get a vote on military aid to Ukraine. And Trump told Congress not to do it, to leave the border open and unsecure through the election because he wanted to campaign on it. And Republicans like Speaker Mike Johnson were saying, Congress doesn't need to pass a law. Biden can do this with executive actions. Biden doesn't want to do this. He wants Congress to do their job. So Biden waited until June, and then he used executive actions to close the border, turn away people seeking asylum. As an American, this is not the proper way to govern. Joe Biden and the Democrats don't want to do this. But when Republicans in Congress refuse to vote on border security or immigration reform, this is what we end up with. Hi, Jake. What would it take for the U.S. to change from the Electoral College to a popular vote system? And how would this be done? So twice in my lifetime, the person who got fewer votes got to be president because of the Electoral College. This was George Bush in 2000 and then Donald Trump in 2016. And the Electoral College was a compromise to get the original 13 colonies to create a new federal system. Kind of made sense 230 years ago, but it doesn't really make sense today. Can we change it? And this is near impossible. To amend the Constitution, you need a 2/3 vote in both the House and the Senate, and then you need 3/4 of the state to ratify the amendment. We're never going to get 2/3. We're never going to get 3/4. This just isn't going to happen by amending the Constitution. But there is a way, and it's called the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact. And these are states voluntarily saying, we're going to award all of our electoral votes to the winner of the popular vote nationally as soon as all states agree to this compact. So this map shows you which states have already passed this law. These are state legislatures saying that if everyone agrees to it, to get to 270, then we're just going to do it. So we don't need the participation or the cooperation of all the states. We only need a majority of the states and their electoral votes to say we're not going to do this anymore. Whoever wins the popular vote nationally, we're going to give our state's electoral votes. It doesn't matter how people voted in our state. We're going to give our electoral votes to the winner of the national popular vote. And we're pretty darn close. So green means enacted, yellow means pending, and these states are the ones not even considering it. So it's mostly blue states trying to pass this law. And this only goes into effect once we get over 270. So then it doesn't matter what happens in any other state. Those states are all going to award their 270 to the winner of the national vote. I do think this is going to happen eventually. I think within the next 10 years, this initiative could get more popularity. We need a presidential candidate to promote it. But this is a way to get around the Electoral College. There are very smart people who have already thought about this problem, and they're working on it. It's called the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact. Next question. How do you see the Ukraine wars playing out with a Harris victory versus a Trump victory? Well, to begin, nothing good will happen if Donald Trump is elected. If Donald Trump is elected, I think all military support and cooperation with Ukraine will immediately end. That's what he's promising. He's going to end the war on day one by just giving the Russians everything they want. But in general, this is unprecedented for an American president. Trump says he would encourage Russia to attack NATO allies who don't pay up. I've said this before, the NATO guideline of spending 2% of your GDP on defense, this is not protection money being paid to the United States by Europeans. Trump talks and thinks in mafia language, where if NATO countries don't pay up to the United States won't protect them. I do want to say that every country on Russia's border that could be attacked is already spending more than 2%. The only hypothetical country that Russia could attack would be Canada, who's not spending 2% of their GDP on defense. Trump seems to think it's okay if the Russians invaded Canada. That's how stupid this is. So what would Harris do? And I think worst case scenario, it would just be more of the same. A continuation of Biden policies and a level of support Biden's been giving. For some people, that's not good enough. They're not happy with that, but really, what's your alternative? But I do think, given that this war has gone on for 2.5 years, and it could go on a lot longer, I do think that President Harris will be motivated to change some policies, to hasten the downfall of the Russians, help the Russians realize they're never going to win this war, and they're better off just ending it. What would the conclusion look like? And that's open to debate. But it's obvious that Ukraine needs more support today. So we need to get past the November 5th election, get past January 20th when Harris would be sworn in, and then we can start coming up with solutions. Realistically, guys, I don't think Ukraine is going to win this war by going on the offensive. Just giving all the material needed for Ukraine to conduct offensive operations, as long as the Russians are able to regenerate, build new missiles, build new tanks, recruit more guys, it's just going to remain stalemated. We need some kind of political or economic collapse inside of Russia for the Russian military to not be able to fight anymore. That's how Ukraine will get back their internationally recognized territory. Next question. What checks and balances are in place to stop fascism from a sitting president of the United States? This is a depressing question with not good answers. So the first check on executive overreach, or the United States becoming a fascist country, it's supposed to be the Supreme Court. But unfortunately, the Supreme Court, the last 20 years, has been packed with unethical people. 3 of these people were appointed by Donald Trump himself. 6 were appointed by Republicans, and these people are corrupt. Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas accepted gifts worth millions of dollars over the last 20 years. Billionaires have been buying our Supreme Court justices, buying them houses, taking them on trips, buying them RVs, and nobody's doing anything about it. Republicans in Congress don't want to investigate and impeach Republican Supreme Court justices, and Donald Trump wants these people here to protect him. So the Supreme Court recently ruled that presidents have absolute political immunity from anything they do while president. That's a dictatorship. The Supreme Court in the last year, to protect Donald Trump, said the president can be a dictator. He's above the law. No law applies to the president of the United States whenever he does something. So it's terrifying. As for the United States Senate, to impeach the president, you would need a 2/3 vote in the Senate. And these guys in the Senate are just never going to do it. If they were to betray and turn on Donald Trump, the Republican base would turn on them, and they would no longer be U.S. senators. Any senators that have spoken out against Trump the last 6 or 7 years, Trump has purged. Jeff Flake, Bob Corker, Mitt Romney's retiring, Mitch McConnell's retiring. If you're a Republican senator who opposes fascism, the base just primaries you, and they get rid of you because they want to empower Donald Trump. So the only way to survive as a Republican in Congress is to lie, to say that you love Big Brother and want to embrace him. I can show you endless clips and tweets from Republican senators like Lindsey Graham. This is what he was saying about Trump in 2016. If we nominate Trump, we will get destroyed, and we will deserve it. I can show you clips from Glenn Beck and Tucker Carlson, Alex Jones, like everyone who supports Trump today at some point in the last 10 years has said this guy is a nightmare. He's a disaster. Nobody should be voting for or supporting him, including J.D. Vance. J.D. Vance used to compare Trump to Hitler. He called him cultural opium. But if you want power, if you want an easy path to making a lot of money and being influential, all you have to do is flatter and praise the dictator. Trump knows this. He knows that to maintain people's loyalty, all you have to do is threaten them. If you don't kiss up to me and approve of everything I say and do, then I'm going to turn my base on you. I'm going to have my people threaten your families, threaten your livelihood. This is how Trump has been maintaining order in the Republican Party for a decade now. And these guys hate Trump. They're all secretly rooting for him to lose against Kamala Harris, because then it's their time. Nobody else is allowed to make policy. Nobody else is allowed to make decisions. Everyone just has to stand around and wait for Trump to tweet something to know what they're allowed to say and do. This system of government is insane. Next question is from Martin. What laws do you think Elon Musk has broken during this race? Do you think he will be brought to justice? Love the channel. Thank you for supporting Ukraine and the educational bits you include in your videos, like the origin of the word Caesar, Tsar. So right now, Elon Musk is paying people in a lottery system $1 million a day in the state of Pennsylvania to register and vote for Donald Trump. You can't do this. You can't just be the richest man in the world and buy people to vote for Donald Trump in Pennsylvania. But this is how desperate Donald Trump and Elon Musk are. They're just trying to buy votes. This is, of course, illegal, and the state of Pennsylvania is now suing Elon Musk. He was supposed to appear in court yesterday, but he refused to go. Elon Musk is saying he wants this criminal case transferred to federal court so that the Republicans on the Supreme Court can protect him. Elon Musk has said he's probably going to jail if Donald Trump loses. Inside Elon Musk's 23 active lawsuits, stuff he's doing with Twitter right now is illegal. He was fake registering people to vote, and the state of Michigan is now taking him to court as well. Elon Musk doesn't care. He thinks he's going to get away with it. He thinks if Donald Trump wins, Donald Trump will either just pardon him for crimes or drop all investigations from the Department of Justice. Here is Elon Musk on Tucker Carlson's show saying that, yeah, if Trump loses, he's probably going to jail.
He loses, man. What? You're fucked, dude.
I'm fucked. If he loses, I'm fucked.
It does seem that way. You can't just be like, yo,
Yeah, I'm like, how long do you think my prison sentence is going to be? Do you think? Will I see my children? I don't know.
Because it's not like you can say, well, yeah, I maxed out to him, but, I get...
I have no plausible deniability.
So there's Elon Musk saying that if Kamala Harris wins, he knows he's committing crimes to help Trump and help the Russians, and he's probably going to go to jail. I don't actually think he's going to go to jail. He's the world's richest man. He'll just leave the United States and never come back. Elon Musk is not a proud American. He doesn't care about our history. He doesn't care about our Constitution. He doesn't care about our systems of checks and balances. Elon Musk is a fascist, and he's a globalist. He will happily pick up and move to Dubai, or to Bangkok, or to Beijing, or Moscow, or Istanbul. If America doesn't want to just give him everything he thinks he wants and needs, he'll just go somewhere else because he has money. I cannot stand Elon Musk, guys. And I'm not going to accept this. I'm not going to accept this as normal. I know people love the accomplishments of SpaceX. I know a lot of people own Teslas and they love their cars. Elon Musk has fantastic people working for him doing amazing things. But this guy is insane, and I'm never going to accept what he's saying and doing as normal. Elon Musk reportedly is offering his sperm to people, to women. Elon Musk has had like 13 kids with 5 or 6 different women, and he's convinced he can repopulate the earth by just impregnating as many women as possible. This is his goal, publicly. He's now offering his sperm to women he meets at parties. Elon Musk offering people his sperm while creating a family compound in Texas. Not a cult. So yes, Elon Musk is creating a compound in Texas where he wants to gather these women he's impregnating and then raise all of his children together. Like, this man is nuts. I'm not going to accept this as normal. I know people in the comments section are going to get upset. A lot of Elon Musk fans out there. But this guy is a supervillain. And he's doing serious harm to the world right now. Do Ukraine and the EU have a firm plan in place should Trump win the election? Does Ukraine ultimately fall under a Trump presidency? There's no plan for the G7 and the EU. I think what we've learned the last 2.5 years is they were faking it. They had no real plan. There is no strength to be projected. All of the projected strength is coming from China, Russia, authoritarian regimes, because it's just easier. It's just easier in an autocracy to have a plan. It's whatever one guy wants. Whereas with democracies, it's about factions, it's about coalitions, it's about party unity and compromises to the opposition. All of these democratic leaders, they have to. They have to worry about their next election, their next GDP reports, their next unemployment reports. They have to worry about inflation. Kim Jong-un doesn't have to worry about any of those things. Vladimir Putin is choosing not to worry about any of those things. So is Ukraine screwed? No, but Russia has a plan, and Russia's plan is just to partner with far-right parties until they can take over European countries. What Russia wants, and they're doing a good job, is to work with far-right parties within the democratic process to eventually gain control of these governments once the far-right party is in power, rig the vote, crack down on journalists, crack down on the opposition, basically accomplish what Fico in Slovakia and Orban in Hungary have done. Russia thinks they have decades to do this. Sure, they might hold off the far right in Germany this next election cycle or the far right in France this next election cycle. But Russia's going to keep spending their money, and they're going to just wait for their opportunities until they can legitimately gain control of the main players in Europe. And as for the smaller countries, they don't really matter. What about Ukraine? Ukraine's fighting for everyone. Ukraine's fighting for you and me if you're watching this video. We need to continue supporting Ukraine. And even if Donald Trump wins, I argue Europe can still do this on their own. It'd be fantastic if the United States can continue helping you. But Europe has the population and the resources, without the help of the allies in North America and the Pacific, to defeat the Russians. They just need to cooperate, which I know is a challenge. What form does post-MAGA Republican Party take when Trump is gone and the Vance Project with Thiel and Co. takes over? This is crazy, but yeah, the Republican Party has been taken over by these two guys. Peter Thiel was originally born in Germany. Elon Musk is from South Africa. And they're rich. They're billionaires. And it's their money, it's their influence that is driving the Republican Party. Anybody who wants to work with these two guys to stay in the party, you can do so. But these guys won't hesitate to cut anyone off who doesn't support their radical agenda. I don't know what to say. I mean, the party of George Bush, Ronald Reagan, Mitt Romney, John McCain is gone. I mean, it's just gone. When Trump is gone, who will be the new standard bearer? And it's not going to be J.D. Vance. Donald Trump doesn't even like J.D. Vance. J.D. Vance was Peter Thiel's assistant. Peter Thiel then spent $16 million to make him a senator in Ohio. I think he's only been a senator for like 2 years, 4 years, and now he's the VP nominee. So I think when Trump loses, Trump is going to turn on J.D. Vance. MAGA is going to blame him for being a weirdo. This guy is objectively weird. So it's not going to be J.D. Vance. And it's not going to be, it might be Ron DeSantis, I don't know. It's not going to be Vivek Ramaswamy. It's not going to be Nikki Haley. Who will be the Republican nominee in 4 years? And I think it's going to be somebody with a fresh start. Maybe somebody with Trump's policy positions, but speaks more coherently and doesn't lie as much. I don't know. I think Trump has a winning formula for his policies, talking about immigration, talking about inflation, talking about isolation. I mean, these are popular positions, but Trump just compulsively lies about everything. He just speaks incoherently. The guy is almost 80 years old. Here's from Jose. Jake, I'm a Republican and Puerto Rican and voted for Kamala Harris in Florida. Glory to Ukraine. Yeah, the Puerto Rican community is still not over that comedian who called their island a floating pile of garbage. So yeah, at the moment, Puerto Rican Americans in Florida are voting 85% in favor of Kamala Harris. There's a very large Puerto Rican community in Pennsylvania, as well as North Carolina. We'll see if it has an impact. That honestly would be pretty funny if it did, given that I don't think Trump even knows who this comedian is. This comedian who was invited, this was Joe Rogan's idea. And this comedian is a roaster. He was just literally doing his job. But that's not how you speak at political rallies. You don't insult people when you take the stage at a presidential rally. That was Trump's mistake. Well, it's his handler's mistake. I don't know. But Jose, thank you so much for voting for Kamala Harris. You're my hero. Next one's from Earthly Knights. I highly doubt this will get read, but here it goes. Jake is an outsider from the UK looking into the US election and seeing how stable it is with Trump and MAGA. If Trump did somehow win the election and turn into a dictator, I have two questions. How likely would the US military do something to stop Trump trying to become a dictator? Depending on how the political climate heats up or cools down, do you think the US could enter a phase of civil unrest, if not civil war? No, the United States is never going to start a civil war. The average American has gained a lot of weight. We're not in great shape. Physically, we're a very unhealthy country, so for the average person, they're not going to pick up a rifle and go to war over an election. But specifically, yeah, I think there would be a lot of civil unrest if Donald Trump won. Donald Trump and his supporters want to say between 2017 and 2020, that was the golden era, the best time in America. And objectively, no, it wasn't. There was a pandemic that killed 1 million Americans. There was a stock market crash. We had the women's Me Too movements, lots of protesting, and we had the Black Lives Matter protests. If you're a conservative and you didn't like seeing urban areas being set on fire and people flipping over cars and assaulting police officers because people were rioting over Black Lives Matter, we haven't had that the last 4 years because we have a president who is willing to work with and listen to all Americans. Donald Trump is incapable of doing that. Donald Trump only wants to be president for people who love and support him. And he calls anyone who doesn't support him the enemy from within. So if Trump gets back into office, it's going to be 4 years of rioting and protesting. But that's not a civil war. It's not like states are going to secede and then try to start a new government. That's not going to happen. And as for military leaders, when Trump was elected in 2016, he had a lot of military leaders endorsing him. John Kelly, Michael Flynn, Mad Dog Mattis, H.R. McMaster. And all these guys they're out. They're done. There's nobody in the military community supporting Donald Trump right now. This is why Donald Trump almost never talks about the U.S. military anymore. Top generals plan to resign en masse if Trump refused to leave office. This was back after the 2020 election. So what the military will do when Trump gives illegal orders to kill Americans is these generals and admirals will just resign. And they're saying, I'm not going to execute an unlawful command. So Trump is going to have to find military leaders willing to do what he says. That will be illegal orders. Trump wants to shoot protesters. He tried to get the military to shoot protesters 4 years ago. The only general that really still supports Trump is Michael Flynn, and Michael Flynn has been discredited and disgraced. Initially, Trump made him National Security Advisor in 2017 and then had to fire him because Michael Flynn was lying to Mike Pence. That was the scandal 8 years ago, Jesus. But here's a picture of Michael Flynn sitting next to Vladimir Putin at a dinner, along with Jill Stein and Dmitry Peskov. Michael Flynn is Trump's only military supporter at the moment because he's working for the Russians, along with Jill Stein, the Green candidate. She's also working for the Russians. I don't know. People are still going to vote for him. What do you think about Trump and Moses Mike Johnson's little secret? I think this should be talked about regardless, just to expose the insurrection 2.0. So Trump acts like a little child, and when someone tells him something interesting he's not supposed to talk about, he then starts bragging to people that he knows a secret. What is Trump's little secret with Speaker Mike Johnson? And Mike Johnson has told Trump, when you lose the popular vote, when you lose the Electoral College, we're still going to rig it so you can win. How would you do this? And in the Constitution it says, if neither candidate gets a majority of the 538 electoral votes, the election for president is decided in the House of Representatives, with each state delegation having one vote. So you only need a majority of the states, 26 states, to win the presidency. Senators would then elect the vice president, each senator having one vote. So what Trump wants when he loses is for states to not certify their results. Just don't give them to Harris. And obviously you can't give them to Trump because Trump lost. Just say there's a scandal, there's an irregularity. We can't certify the results. So if neither Harris or Trump gets to 270 because several states controlled by Republicans but went for Harris are all blocked, neither candidate got 270, it then goes to the House of Representatives for a vote. And their goal is just to steal it by having House Republicans vote for Trump. That's what they're going to try and do. I hope it doesn't work, but yeah, I think there might be some mass rioting and protesting if Speaker Mike Johnson tries to do this. What is the feeling in the military right now? If Trump is elected, will he have the support of the military, or could there be a coup? So what I want to say about active duty military is they're young. They're Gen Zers. The average age of somebody in the military is 28 years old. And young people don't like Donald Trump. When you actually poll people, which candidate do you prefer? These are people under the age of 30. 52% for Harris, 36% for Trump, 58-27, 56-40, 62-36, 50-31. Donald Trump is 78 years old. He talks about Arnold Palmer and Hannibal Lecter, and he has no clue how TikTok or other social media platforms aside from Twitter operate. So the average person in the military isn't too crazy about Trump. And I just left the military 2.5 years ago. I think people have misconceptions about the military, and they don't realize how diverse it is. The United States military is representative of the American people. The American country is diverse. So what percent of people in the military identify as a minority? And it's 40%. Almost a third are women. So these people generally are more liberal, and they don't support Donald Trump's policies of banning Muslims and deporting migrant workers and all this other stuff. Stuff about trans people and LGBT. Those policies are generally favored by older Americans. But what about the officer corps? Because there's a difference between enlisted and officer. And yeah, the officer corps is firmly against Donald Trump. If you're currently serving, you shouldn't be political. You can't endorse a candidate. But there are lots of retired generals and admirals and national security experts who have all endorsed Harris. More than 700 national security officials have endorsed Kamala Harris for president. Trump is not getting many endorsements this cycle from military people. And I just have to mention John Kelly. John Kelly is a 4-star Marine general, retired, who was Trump's longest-serving White House chief of staff. And if you've not seen the interviews, if you've not seen the articles, John Kelly says Trump is a fascist. He's a dictator. He had to argue with Trump frequently in conversations that Hitler was not a good guy. Hitler is not a role model to be followed for a world leader. That's how stupid this is. 13 former Trump administration officials signed an open letter backing up John Kelly's criticism of Trump. Kelly told the New York Times that Trump meets the definition of a fascist, and also said he observed the former president on multiple occasions praising Adolf Hitler. So let me share with you a clip. This is Fox News anchor Bret Baier asking Trump, why do so many people who used to work for you now say you're a terrible person and you shouldn't be president anymore? Why are there like 40 people from your last administration who are not supporting you today?
In 2016, you said that. I'm going to surround myself with only the best and most serious people.
Well, I did do that.
This
and we
time-
had tremendous. Look, we had the best economy we've ever had. The
This
world
time-
has ever seen.
Your Vice President, Mike Pence, is running against you.
Yeah.
Your Ambassador to the United Nations, Nikki Haley, she's running against you. Your former Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, said he's not supporting you. You mentioned National Security Advisor John Bolton. He's not supporting you either. You mentioned Attorney General Bill Barr, says you shouldn't be president again, calls you the consummate narcissist and troubled man. You recently called Barr a gutless pig. Your second defense secretary is not supporting you, called you irresponsible. This week, you and your White House called your White House Chief of Staff, John Kelly, weak and ineffective and born with a very small brain. You called your acting White House Chief of Staff, Mick Mulvaney, a born loser. You called your first Secretary of State, Rex Tillerson, dumb as a rock, and your first Defense Secretary, James Mattis, the world's most overrated general. You called your White House Press Secretary, Kayleigh Haney, milquetoast, and multiple times you've referred to your Transportation Secretary, Elaine Chao, as Mitch McConnell's China-loving wife. So, why did you hire all of them in the first place?
These are not Democrats. These are Republicans that Trump hired to be in his government, who have all turned on him saying Trump is an idiot, Trump is dangerous, Trump should not be reelected president. The most high-ranking is Donald Trump's vice president. Mike Pence is not voting for or supporting Donald Trump. Donald Trump was behind the insurrection on January 6th. His supporters were chanting outside of Congress, hang Mike Pence, hang Mike Pence. I don't know, guys. I'm just kind of falling apart here. This is so stupid. This is so obvious to anyone with half a brain that Donald Trump is a serious threat to world peace and security, but he's still going to get probably close to 70 million votes. So Mike Pence, if you voted for Trump in 2016 or you voted for Trump in 2020, you also voted for Mike Pence. And Mike Pence is putting his country above his party. He's putting the Constitution above any individual. And nobody should be voting for or supporting Donald Trump. I'm not saying you have to vote for Harris. If you're a lifelong conservative or a Republican, you have the option to not vote. If you can't bring yourself to vote for Harris, write some other name in. Or just don't vote for president and vote for every other office. But ethically, you cannot be voting for Donald Trump. All the warnings are there. The next 4 years are not going to go well for America if this man is allowed back in the White House. So here's my election prediction. Pretty much I think Harris is going to win every swing state except Georgia. But it shouldn't be close. 3 days till the election. We all just have to hang in there. It's exhausting, guys. I know it. It's exhausting to think about and talk about Donald Trump, and we've all been forced to do it for almost 10 years now. But we're so close. We just have to get past next week, and then American democracy can finally start healing again, and we can finally move on. All right, that's all for this Q&A. Thank you so much to everyone who participated. I'll be back tomorrow with a regular update video. And I think I am going to do a live stream on election night, so if you want to tune in for that, you can watch me watch the results come in. Till then, take care, everyone.